You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast, here for another SuperCoach preseason episode with the preseason team previews rolling on. This week, we have the New Zealand Warriors, and just like last year, we have perennial superfan Anton, well known on social media. Mate, you've got you probably got more followers than the actual podcast at this point. I think all of New Zealand follows you. But the question that we all have to start off with is, Bunty Appreciation Society, you're the man with the sign in the crowd. There's no more Bunty. What are you going to do now?
Well, I was at a real crossroads with this one, you know. So actually, at the end of last year, I decided, well, what am I going to do with this sign? I'm not making another one. I'm not doing this all over again. I'm not hitching my wagon to anybody else. So I actually wrote a letter to Benji. And I said, hey, listen, man, I don't know whether you think you've just signed a bench prop or whatever, but you've signed a bit more than that. You might see a guy with a giant flag with the wrong colours on it in Campbelltown or Leichhardt this year. That'll be me. It doesn't have to be weird. We're just going to do it. I'm going to be there. He's my boy. I can't let him go. He's changed clubs, but so what? So it's a bit of a hit, but Webby wasn't playing him anyway. So there we go.
You should show up to the Warriors games with it as well. You can double the amount of games you can get to.
Yeah, rub his nose in it.
Well, look, Anton knows everything Warriors. Great news on social media as well, if you follow him too, because I always like your Warriors takes and stuff to follow. You are in Sydney now, though, that has to be said, so you're no longer over in New Zealand, but you know your heart's still there, I'm sure, so you'll have all the inside goss for me. But we are going to talk Warriors this episode, and I think we'll start off with where their roster's at, and we'll talk about their draw, and then we'll go through the players a little bit more, but roster-wise, Anton, I think we were just talking about it before, and it's pretty settled. Like, they haven't really gotten a huge amount of players in. It's really probably the players that are coming in from injury are probably going to be the biggest ones. Like, you've got Barnett, who missed a large chunk of last season. Metcalf was on fire the first third of the season before he was hurt. It's almost like getting those guys in as new recruits this year when they're starting again, because you didn't really get them last year. I reckon that's kind of, in a weird roundabout way, your biggest acquisitions for the season, really.
Yeah. Well, Metcalf was on track for the Dally M when he went down. He was in the front. And Mitch Barnett, I mean, he's the captain, you know. You lose your captain and your halfback, and, you know, you should be in a bit of bother. But we kind of hung in there and, almost made the top four going into the playoffs. But I think we just, dropped one or two games we were expected to win towards the end, and the Broncos snuck in, and the rest is history. But most of the signings have been in the depth category, and I think that's a result of, after COVID, around that time we basically didn't have any feeder teams. So from youth group up, we just had the top team with a few players in Redcliffe, and those younger development teams are now starting to bear fruit. And so those guys are really trying to knock the door down. You haven't heard of a lot of their names yet, but I've been keeping an eye on them. And so a lot of these kind of fringe first grade guys we've seen just let go. Most of them have gone to the Panthers, but some have gone to other places. And I think we're okay with that now. Asked if we lost that kind of depth, it would have been, whoa, who's up next? Well, it's like, well, actually, there's quite a few good guys coming up next. We just don't know their names yet. So that's kind of exciting for a club to be building that kind of sustainability in the roster.
I guess the big signing will be Khan Pereira at the Titans. He was a renowned speedster and renowned try scorer. It's something that I believe Webster has mentioned specifically, so it's no secret that he wants a bit more speed in that back line. So certainly Khan Pereira's had his defensive issues, and that was kind of the knock at the Titans. But he's a great finisher, and he's a guy with speed, and he's young as well. So, I mean, if we're looking at signings, there is very few there, and there's really no other ones of note. But that is a decent one if he can fit into that system.
Yeah, he's a real Webby type guy, a fringe guy with something to prove, like Jackson Ford, Mitch Barnett, who is, they kind of have something to prove. He's obviously got speed, and that's something, if you look at our back line, we can't score. Last year, we couldn't score 80-meter tries unless it's Leka Halasima doing it. So I think we kind of needed, someone who can create something out of nothing. So it's really great to have that kind of speed on board.
And I mean, probably your biggest loss was Dylan Walker, aside from Bunty, of course. And Dylan Walker went across during the season, so I mean, you've already spent time without him. So other than that, you mentioned there's a lot of fringe guys there. I mean, Kossi spent a lot of time in first grade, so and there is him. But guys like Kalani going, I'm kind of happy that he gets to go somewhere else because he just wasn't going to fit in your squad. And Freddie Lussick and Setu too was also going to probably not get a run either. So yeah, I mean, as far as where we think that they're going to go, I'm not sure. To be honest, for me personally, I think that they're one of the more unknowns for the season. And part of that is the injuries. You know, how well can Metcalf and Barnett come back from severe ACL injuries? You know, they're quite serious. Sometimes it takes a season for those guys to get back into it. And they're both two of your best players. Metcalf, like you said, was leading the Dally M's for a portion of last season. And Mitch Barnett was the forward leader for sure. So, I mean, those two guys coming back, if they're back at 100% and they're just firing straight away, all of a sudden, you're a definitive top 8 side probably. But if they're not, and then your depth gets tested a little bit, it's a good thing that some of those young guys you're talking about will get a go, but that's not necessarily going to translate into wins in the NRL. And I've spoken on some of the other episodes too with other guests. It is one of the closer seasons when you look at it, and has been for a couple of years really, where a lot of these sides are really good. So like I've probably said it for a few years, Ed Todd, where it's like, look, saying that I think your team's going to finish bottom 4 isn't saying that they're terrible, because in the modern NRL, it's really competitive and it's difficult, and a good team can finish in the bottom 4 with the way it is at the moment.
It just takes 1 or 2 injuries to key players and you can go down. Like a lot of people are on Souths right now, but if they lose Cody Walker, for a long period of time, suddenly that spine looks a bit Stephen Hawking, So I think, RIP. But I think, so I think, that can happen to any team at any time. And I think for me, the opening 7 rounds are really important for us because we're not going to have Metcalf there till round 7. So if we can get through that period and sort of get through it with the fair few wins and, not too many losses, then I think we'll be right in the mix. And we're a hard team to beat on our day. We don't normally thrash teams, but we're in pretty much every game. So yeah, I don't see much regression in us from a squad point of view. I'm looking at the comings and goings and Kalani goings. But like you say, it's a tough comp, man. And anything can happen injury-wise. Me to pick too. I mean, last year you said the floor was the spoon, and I was like, ugh. But I tried not to react, but I was kind of like, oh yeah. But even me, I was like, fuck, man, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to make the 8 this year because I don't know. And for me,
when I looked at it, I sort of went 7 to 14. That's my range, and it's a big range, right? Like 6 or 7, all the way back to 14. That's a large range. I don't think I've given that range to any side so far, but that's probably where I landed the more I thought about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think at best we're top 4, and I think at worst we're probably have the wrong kind of injuries. We might go down 11-12. I think that could be us. But yeah, I mean that's a huge range. That's not putting my neck out, is it? It's still like
we're pretty similar, really.
Yeah, we are.
It's hard. I rate Webster as a coach, obviously, and I do really rate some of the younger guys. There is some players in your side as well that I'll just throw out there though that have either played better than I thought, and I'm not sure whether they can continue, or have played pretty badly and probably deserve to not be in the side, but they'll make it. And that second comment's more directed to a acronym, DWZ. Some of his defence last year I thought was absolutely horrendous. And for a coach like Webster, I was really quite surprised that he didn't get dropped. So, he's someone who I just think, on name value, he looks like an NRL player, but on actual performance last year and even the year before, really, he's not really been up to scratch. And that's going to be a big concern for me on the downside for the Warriors. Guys like him in that back line, and I do think the back line looks a bit thin. And guys like that I was really high on last year, like Leotawa, who I hopefully said correctly after you coached me on it last year. We thought it was going to be a breakout season for him, and he was quite disappointing. That backline can really hinder them depending on how those guys can step up and with some of those selections. And there's some other guys as well who have got an excuse probably not to perform. Like if Metcalf comes back and needs a season, look, that's fair enough. But I'm also looking at if Metcalf's out to around 7, when I speak about guys who have performed better than I expected, I never thought Timo Martin was going to be the player that he has been in the prior couple of years when he's filled in. Like he's been phenomenal. He's been way better than what he was pre-New Zealand Warriors signing. And I just don't know. Sometimes you don't know with those guys. Like, did he have a good run for 12, 18 months? Or has he actually evolved late as a player and become really quite good? I'm just not really sure because he wasn't like that before. So, yeah, there's a few of those question marks that I'm not sure about as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about the draw? Let's talk about that because you're not going to get to see the Warriors much now that you're in Sydney for the first month because 3 out of the first 4 games they're going to play in New Zealand. That is a huge advantage for SuperCoach. And when we're talking about SuperCoach draws, it's always the first 4 weeks, the second 4 weeks are the most important when you're having a look at sort of blocking it to look at SuperCoach potential for your round 1 starting side. And then the other thing is as well where their buys are. Round 10, they've got a buy. Pretty easy to handle by that point. And then the first big buy round 13, they're going to be playing it. So that's quite handy because guys that you can actually sit and forget about until halfway through the season, like Halasima, who we're going to talk about, that's pretty handy. But the first 4 weeks I was really interested in because they hit the Roosters, they hit the Raiders, but both of those are going to be home games. So you go, well, that's 2 tougher matches, but at home, that actually evened it a little bit more. And I know as a Roosters fan, the Warriors have pretty good matchups against us previously where we don't normally flog them or anything. And they get some wins against us as well. Round 3 and 4 is very interesting because round 3, they've got the Knights away. So it is a bit of a trek. And then they've got the Tigers. Now, I know Knights fans and Tigers fans will be like, Barnesy, we're good now. And I'm like,
leave us alone.
I'll go back to the comment I said earlier, guys and girls. It's not about you being terrible teams. It's about the competition. Are you better than the Storm? Are you better than some of the Panthers? Are you better than You're not, okay? If you're going to pick sides to go against, it is still going to be teams like the Titans, the Tigers, the Knights. There's still some points there for SuperCoach, okay? I'm not saying none of you will make the top 8, so please don't get upset with me. But, yeah, that Knights-Tigers, pretty impressive. Round 3 to 4 matchups for SuperCoach. Sharks-Storm, really tough. But then you get the same thing as the first 4 weeks. Then you hit the Titans, which is a really nice matchup in New Zealand. So that is points galore. And then you got the Dolphins. So it's not a bad draw. And I particularly like the first month that they got 3 out of 4 at home for SuperCoach.
Yeah, no, I actually think it's a good draw. If you were choosing the teams to play, and you could have that many home games. Like I say, that first 7 games is really crucial for us to get a good few wins on the board there. And looking at it, we should be targeting at least 4 or 5 of those games as wins. The Roosters, if you are going to play them at any time in the season, you want it to be early before they get their shit together. They often are quite slow starters for some reason. New halves combination and stuff going on, and playing at home, that's good. Raiders is a tough one. They spanked us in Vegas last year, just out of the blocks earlier than we were. Yeah, so I mean, look, it's I just think in terms of this, like when you get down to round 13 there, the Panthers, I'd say, would be out without all their Origin players too. We only have Kurt Capewell to worry about in terms of Origin, and he might not even make that team these days. But it's a team that will handle the early bye section pretty well if you have any players, but we'll get to that a bit later. It's not like a lot of years where there's a few guys screaming "pick me," but there's still value there if you know where to look.
Yeah, let's talk about those players now. So, look, you kind of alluded to it, but it isn't a year where the Warriors are going to have a heap of SuperCoach options for round 1 anyway. And again, like I always say in these podcasts, especially if you're listening for the first time and you've decided to not tune into the first couple and just hit us on the Warriors for your debut listen, it is just talking about round 1, guys and girls, okay? We're talking about what you can do round 1. Now, everybody can become relevant at some point. Jack Reed became relevant for a 6-week run somehow where he averaged 105 points a game or something ridiculous and then went back to averaging 30s. Everybody can do it, okay? So at some point, everybody in the Warriors side might be relevant, but for round 1, it just looks like there's not very many. And we're going to start off talking about their guns. And the first gun is Aaron Clark. Now, Clark was a bit of a revelation, really. And at $671,000, he's now going to be an expensive forward to own. But when you have a look at it, it's actually quite interesting because he started off his Warriors career playing pretty low minutes. They were 40s to low 50s for the first 5 weeks. And he had, had solid scores, but they were pretty low. And then all of a sudden he went bang. and just started killing it and was a base stat beast. If you look at his 60-plus minute games that he played, of which there was 13 of them, he actually averaged 75-plus points per game when he was playing 60-plus minutes. And across those 13 games, it was a 65-minute average. And it was really quite crazy, the base that he was putting up. The base power stats, he had 7 games that were 70-plus points in just base power. So if you're talking about someone that is a meat and potatoes guy, it is Aaron Clark, but he did it at a high level when he got minutes. And that is crucial. Now, some people will say he's got some upside because he didn't score any tries. I normally do this, Anton. I normally look at the tries and go, hey, he's got to get an extra three tries this year. You can't just have 0 playing a back row type role like he does, even though he's at lock in the middle. Like, there's got to be a few. He doesn't score them, though. So that's the problem with him. He's always been 0 to 2 tries. 2 tries has been his career high in a season on how much he's been able to score. So we probably can't rely on that. It is going to come down to minutes for him. Now, I don't like paying CK for a guy like him that's meat and potatoes at a very high level, that he's so minutes reliant. But if he does what he did last year and he gets the minutes, he will be better than some of the bigger names. So for me, it's all about the minutes. And the caveat there, Anton, is with Barnett back in the mix, because that was the thing last year, right? Barnett goes down with an ACL. You had some other forward issues as well. Did the minutes all come from there? Even if they did he earn those minutes to keep them this year? There's a lot of question marks there, because if he goes 55 minutes, then all of a sudden it's really not worth that price tag.
Yeah, I think a few things came together with Clark last year. Sorry. In the early part of the season, I liked the look of Clark as a buy last year and started with him, but his price point was about half of what it is now.
Yes.
And he had Jewel as well, I think. Yeah, he did. He had Jewel. And so that made him attractive. And I thought, you know what, like, he'll be handy even if he doesn't set the world on fire, because Harris had retired at the start of the season. And then as we got into the season, Walker walked. He just left while under contract. And then Mitch Barnett went down. So aside from Fisher Harris, we really didn't have anybody who was that guy, that really scary dude in the middle of the field. And it felt like sometimes he was putting the team on his back and saying, come with me. He became a real leader for us in the middle. This year, we got players back. We've got Laban, who plays a bit on the edge and in the middle. We've signed Morgan Gannon from the UK, who plays lock, and he plays edge as well. Vaimonga plays lock as well. So if we get stacked in the front row, he can go back there. We might even see Mitch Barnett play a bit there. We don't know. So I just feel like he had a lot on his shoulders last year, and that price tag, for me, that says career year to me. That's the kind of thing, like, he's never done anything like that before. And it was amazing to see, and we saw it with the Kiwis and the Pacific Champs too. I don't know whether you saw him come off the bench with Nfahu White.
Yes.
Far out. When they both came on together, they just completely took the game away from the other teams with that intensity and leg speed. And who's to say he doesn't get used like that for the Warriors this year? Stacey Jones was the coach of that team, and he's involved with the Warriors. So there might be some learnings there too. So I just think for that price, you can get like a Tino for about $5,000 more. Like, there's other options there that you know what you're getting, are much more secure. So for me, that's an easy pass.
Yeah, and like, there's guys like Keon Kolomatangi that are $5,000 less than what he is as well, that are much more proven, and you know what to expect. And then there's, bargain guys. You've got a $70,000 less Angus Crichton in the second row that's probably underpriced, and other guys like a Britton Nicker, or even if you want to really, go for a 35 or 100 week to week, then you could go for someone like him for only $100,000 less. So it's an awkward price point. I like what you mentioned about career year too. 1.19 ppm is crazy. That's elite status in your ppm rates. It's also the first time that he's done that. Though he has increased his ppm year on year for like 5 years in a row, that is definitely the biggest. So career year, not a young guy doing it either, and got the minutes, had all the opportunity because of the forward pack. It just screams just not to buy him for round one for me. Look, let's move along. RTS. I was really big at points last year of RTS. I really liked getting him in. I think that I may have, but I can't remember. There was like 3 times I wanted to and I didn't, and I cursed myself because he went well. But he's 670,400, and he scored 12 tries in 18 games. Now, that was really good, and I would say that normally I would think that he could probably replicate those tries or come close to it, so I wouldn't be concerned. The problem with him is, and I'm going to need a New Zealand Warrior fan to talk to me about this, Anton. So I'm glad I got you, because he played all these games on the wing last year, and he scored really well on the wing. The year before, you go to 2024, he only had 3 tries, and it was a big difference in his attack. So obviously he needs to be on the wing to score well. His base power stats were actually better on the wing than what they were playing centre as well, even though his raw base was better at centre. Base power, much better as a winger. So I like RTS as a winger. I don't think that I could buy him at 670k still, but I would say he would be an option. If he's at centre, to me it kind of cancels him out being an option. So where's he going to play this year?
Yeah, he'll play on the wing. He's a left winger now. Like the centre experiment, in my mind, they gave him an entire centre season at centre, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And it was a bit like when when I don't know if you remember this, when Sonny Bill Williams started playing rugby union.
Yes,
and
I do.
He played for the Barbarians against the Wallabies, and Sterling Mortlock went straight past him, and they put his face on the big screen. He was like, "What happened there?" He just like he just I think positionally it's such a different position. It feels like it's just one in. Unless you've played a lot of centre before, I think it actually takes a while to get the hang of. And at his age and with his ability on the wing, why learn something different? You know what I mean? He has over 20 carries a game. So in that sense, he plays like a Keanu Kenny fullback, and those with the kick returns and yardage, that's really important for us. It's like having another forward out there. And I just think awesome option for draft. If you can grab him in draft, he's just one of those guys you can whack in your back line, and he'll score you 55 every week. And then if he scores a try on top of that, it'll be more. But really high floor, really good work rate, not a great price. So that crappy year in 24 was what reduced his price for last year and made it attractive. We don't have that this year because he played really well, and I think he's priced at kind of, there's other guys that are about 70k less than that, or maybe more. You get like a Toro, for example, for like 70k less. So I know where I'd be going with that money.
Yeah, I like your thinking. There's just too many other options. It's just too competitive in centre wing when you're talking about elite pricing or undervalued guys that are there. He went from a 57 to a 69 average, so 12 points was a big step up for him. I will just mention, though, Rocco Berry's not going to be healthy to start the season. And I saw just today Fox Sports, and, what do they know? But still, they put out their predicted lineup. And it had DWZ on one wing, Tuivasa-Sheck in the centres to have Khan Pereira come onto the other wing, and Adam Pompey in the other centre spot. So Pompey and Tuivasa-Sheck centres, DWZ and Khan Pereira on either wing, with Rocco Berry out injured. So look, that's what Fox Sports say. If they're right, though, if he's number 4, I'd just stay all the way away from him for sure, because he just can't score well there.
If they're right about that, then Roger's not an option, and we've got a big problem because he didn't work there. I think they're just trying to make room for Khan Pereira, but he's a left winger, and Roger's in that spot, and I think Roger's only got one more year left, and then he's gone. So to me, he's going to be passing the baton on to AKP, and I could see AKP starting in Cup. I know it sounds weird because we just bought him, but he was in Cup when we bought him. And I think shadowing Roger is probably quite a good idea. Also, now Watene Zelezniak knows that there is someone we can drop him for. So I think AKP starts in Cup, and I think we might see Adam Pompey will be in the centres, and I think we'll see maybe Ali Leatawa in the other centre spot. I'm hoping. I was
going to ask you about Leatawa because he needs to probably get more reps, and he's another year in now. You'd expect that he'd probably get an opportunity.
He had a lot of injuries last year. It just seemed like every time he got fit and they gave him a running Cup, he'd pick up something else. So he needs to have a good preseason, but I guess he's a good watch for trials. Yeah, we don't really know. There's probably a couple of things in that back line that we don't know for sure. They're just kind of guesses, but I think no matter what, RTS is a pass for me.
So Luke Metcalf is one of the 4 guys that qualifies as a gun, averaging 60 plus. He's obviously not an option, but I'm going to say that he is an option for draft because, sneaky tip, you could probably get him pretty late and stash him, and it's probably going to be worthwhile, especially if you're not in the first, say, half a dozen picks for your halves and the top options go. You could definitely have a draft strategy with Metcalf and go, look, I've missed out. The guys that I'm going for now, I'm going to be overdrafting for positional need. I can draft value in other positions and build the points up there and get Metcalf late to plug into the half spot. So that's where I see Metcalf.
Yeah.
As far as his value for this year. Obviously, when we get a couple of months in, for classic owners, you're probably going to want to see him play a few games to see what he looks like, particularly after such a good season last year. But obviously, that first big buy round the Warriors are going to play, that could bring Metcalf into calculations mid-season as well.
Yeah. I saw a guy in my draft team stash Sam Walker last year in the actual draft. I was like, because he had ages of time before he was playing. But he was laughing when he came back because Sam Walker went nuts at the end of the year. He had some really big scores in him. And I think for draft, it's a really smart play just to sneak him in there very late, just when no one's looking sort of thing. But yeah. I think Metcalf for 613K for a goal-kicking halfback and a decent attacking side, it's actually quite a good price point. And one of your cows might have come to fruition by then, and you might be looking to upgrade or switch over. So yeah, I don't mind that.
Yeah, it could be something like, an Ethan Sanders across to a Metcalf or something like that. Jackson Ford, now, he actually averaged just over 60 points per game. So believe it or not, he was the fourth best averaging New Zealand Warrior in SuperCoach. I've always liked Jackson Ford. It's his first year averaging 60 plus per game, and his minutes were actually lower than the 2 years before. So when you look at 2023 to 2024, his minutes were 72 and 69 minutes, and he pumped out averages of 55 and 56. So he was very, very steady. His minutes went down to 54 per game, but he found himself averaging 60-plus points at Warriors last year.
Yeah, that's because he was a prop. He played prop last year.
Revelation as a prop. I really like it because he's obviously got the footwork and agility that a edge back rower has, because that's what he's played all his life. But he's strong enough and he's good enough to be able to play there. So, I mean, that side that I looked at on Fox Sports today didn't even have Jackson Ford in the 17. No. So, interesting where he ends up, because like you said, your guys like Laban back, you've bought Gannon from the UK and he should play. And then Niokore has a mortgage on one of those bench spots as well. So, I mean, what happens to Paul Jackson Ford? Because I really thought he was quite good for you last year. And really, in spurts, I think he's been good his whole career. And he's still quite young. So, where does Jackson Ford go?
Ford is very much a guy that you buy when the window is open. So I actually bought him last year and he was amazing for me. He'd do stupid shit though, like not putting his foot on the ball to play it and stuff like that, and giving away penalties and 6 against. But he's involved in everything. If you watch him, he makes like 3 tackles in a set and then he takes 2 hit ups. Like, he's just an animal. He just wants the ball in his hands and wants to be involved in everything. But then when fatigue becomes a factor, he starts doing silly shit. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him start in the number 10 jersey with Mitch Barnett gone next to Fisher Harris. He's obviously not going to stay there for very long when Mitch comes back. But if there's a couple of injuries, that's the time to get on him. If you see Ford, move to the bench for a bit and he's not playing big minutes and he drops down to around that 400 mark, and then there's a couple of injuries to key forwards, that's the time you want to get on. If he's playing 60 minutes or 55, 60 minutes at front row, he's a really great guy to own. Frustrating, but he's really, really handy for the price that you pick him up at. He's not a guy that you would probably grab for draft just because his role keeps changing. And you couldn't reliably play him for a whole season. But he's a guy where you grab him in the right window and he can do you some favors. But I don't think round 1 is that window.
No, it will not be for sure. Now, rising guns. We've talked about the guns. We're looking at rising guns now. And there is possibly not a bigger rising gun in the game across any team than Big Leka Halasima. Halasima was a revelation last year and still did not earn a consistent starting jersey. So that's great for SuperCoach Anton, because now he comes in at 502,400. And one of the good things, but also flags for him though, is that he had a 50% strike rate in that average of scoring tries. So 12 tries in 24 games for an edge-back rower like him is crazy. That is a great strike rate, right up there with elite back rowers that we've ever seen. He did that, though, without even playing 80 minutes. So, I mean, how much of it is really, hard to bank on happening again? Because if he starts, you would hope that he's going to get 80 minutes a game. And when you look at it, breaking down the numbers, games he scored a try, he averaged 67.2 points per game. But he was only in 59 minutes per game. So 80 minutes per game, his average actually projects out to almost 75 points a game. he's just, even if he drops that try scoring by half, he's still 65 plus points per game, which is immense value on his price point. So I found him in my side, Anton, and if he's named to start, I know that some people have gotten some cold feet still because, well, if he's named to start, what if he still only plays 55 to 60 minutes because, the bench rotates through, Laban comes on and replaces him and this sort of thing, which could very well happen. So there is that risk there. But the minute he's an 80-minute back rower, he is going to be a machine for SuperCoach. The only knock I would probably throw at him, his offloads were very low. Okay, he should have had much better offloads, but he was getting over 5 points per game in tackle breaks, and that'll go to 8 or 9 points per game if he's playing 80 minutes.
So this is the guy I was looking forward to talking about the most. He's the guy I like watching the most, and I think a lot of people have him in their sides because it's just fun to own a guy like this. He gets you out of your seat and he'll be on like 30 points or whatever, and then he'll just like waste about 4 dudes and go over and right through the middle. And it just gets you out of your seat, and he's one of those really fun guys to own. But I don't look at stats with a guy like this that hard because you've only got about a season of stats, and his role changed a lot. In August, there were some hard questions put to Webster on why is, your season is kind of at the pointy end now. Why are you moving Leka to the bench? Why is this happening? Why do you keep starting Niokore on the edge of blah, blah? And he basically said, look, this kid is like 19 years old. In the last game, every time he touched the ball, he dropped it. Like, it's a lot. He's basically, everybody's telling him he's amazing, he's a superstar. He's like 18, 19 years old. He's just out of school. He nearly won a game the year before. I think it was against the Bulldogs. He had this crazy run. He just got tackled just before the line the last minute. He nearly won us that game as well, and he was like 18 at the time. So kid's a freak, right? But Webster just said, look, I've actually got a quote here. I wrote this down. How's this for some research?
Look at that preparation. What a professional.
He says to the media, I think a lot of people want him in their fantasy teams, but we're doing the right thing by him. So we can all kind of maybe calm down a little bit because the coach is like, he's got options there. He and Laban, they're at a similar stage of their development. Laban's older and he's been playing more cup. They are still learning what it takes to be a consistent week-on-week edge-back rower. And so they were kind of sharing that role a little bit. And we saw a bit more of Leka towards the end of the season when Laban got that injury. Leka spent time in the centres. He can play on the wing. He's like, he's a really crazy athlete, but the intention is absolutely, from Webster's point of view, to have him as an 80-minute back rower. It's just when he gets to that point, we don't know. He put it from the start of the season. We don't know what's going to happen, but he's got the motor for it. When fatigue starts setting in and the mindset's not there, and you don't have that mentality around the game, then it's not healthy for someone to be kept out there for all that time when they're not doing themselves any favors or the team. So we might see him get managed a little bit, but I think we've seen now that edge back row spot, I think that's his, and I think he will start on the edge. And for $500,000, I don't think you're risking a lot. There's not a lot of other players that are priced around that similar price point that have got the kind of upside he's got. But having said that, he might revert to the bench. At that price, you might only need about 65 minutes from Leka to be value.
I mean, if he does the same thing, like which he's priced at, so starts and then loses 20 to 25 minutes a game because he's benched for some of that portion of the game, it's not going to really matter to you. You're still going to get what you've paid for at least. So as long as he's named to start, I'm happy to give him a crack. I'm going to throw in here. I'm going to jump in and we're going to talk a bit more real life footy now from SuperCoach. And yeah. I'm going to sound like that I know more than NRL coaches, and I don't really think that I do. But I'm going to sound like it. I'm sure.
Go on. You do.
Look, I agree with Andrew Webster for that first year, right? And 100% it makes sense. You need to be careful with those young guys. They need to learn. They're still developing a lot, blah, blah, blah. I agree with all of it for the first year. But you get to the second year, and your back rowers are... Niokore last year anyway was in that spot for a bit, and your other back row is Capewell. I don't rate either of them. Like, I think that you could go through every club and they might not start for another club. And that might sound like scathing for Capewell because he's that Origin star and match winner and blah, blah, blah. He stepped up with that Origin jersey and played way better than what he has for the Warriors at times. I think that they're so past it. And the Warriors just don't have anyone that's a great back rower aside from Leka Halasima right now. And to me, they need that attack. And if you're going to have a few issues here and there, a few growing pains, you kind of live with that because the stuff that you get out of it that's good is so much better than if you don't have him on the field. And I just think the Warriors attack just really needs it now. So I agree with the first year, but if I'm Webster, that second year, I'm like, he's the most talented back row we have in the club by a mile, and I just need to play him.
Yeah. I think you also look at the squad and you look at when the contracts finish up for some of these guys. Niokoro's gone at the end of the year. Capewell also gone. So we are not going to have those two guys available to us next season. So this is the year we're going to see those two guys step up. So there's a few options. Leka will definitely be one. There's a couple of other guys too. Laban is one that we know. Morgan Gannon's another one. But there's a kid sniffing around in the top 30 that nobody is probably thinking about yet. His name's Kalis Fatialofa. And if you look up his highlights, I mean, I don't know why we keep making these edge back rowers, but this kid is pretty good. And I think if he finds his way onto the bench, just really keep an eye on this kid because he's really good. But
Nice.
but the future is there. So I think like the succession plan is definitely there. So yeah, I think the idea of having 80-minute edge back rowers is kind of what Webster's working towards, and it's a question of how soon we're going to get to that point. Because Niokoro is actually, when we bought him, he was playing his best footy for Para, and it was off the bench in the middle.
Yep.
That is still, in my mind, his best position. Why he's found himself on the edge for so long with like zero attacking upside, I don't fucking know. But that's where he's been. I don't know, like maybe it's because he's on $800,000. We think we have to play him on the edge every single week, but it's not. I mean, I don't know how he got that contract even. But anyway, he's finishing up at the end of the year, so I think we should. It might be a slow burn with Leka, and I think what might happen is people buy him for 500. They might get worried by the minutes, and they might actually dump him, and then 6 weeks into the season, he becomes that guy, and he becomes like a Ali Katoa edge back rower, 80 minutes every week, ripping balls out of the air on bombs and scoring freaky tries and stuff. And like, I think he's got the potential to be like that. Because remember, we lost Ali Katoa.
I remember. I used to love him in the Warriors, and then I didn't understand why you benched him, and he was just in 14 all
exactly.
the time.
And they get frustrated, and other clubs come along and pick him off. So I don't think we'll make that mistake this time.
I don't think you will either. He's currently 17.3% owned. I've just brought it up. And I actually think that'll drop.
Really?
Yeah. I actually think that it'll drop because I think that people are going to get scared. And there's already been talk about, even if he starts, he'll get 50 minutes, and you got your Webster quote there as well. People will hear that, I understand, but I tell you what, even at 17%, I love that at 500k, and I'm all over it at the moment. And like I said, the draw's quite good, so he's scored in 50% of his games. He's 3 or 4 at home to start with. Tiger's Edge and Knight's Edge is there as well. And
whatever happens, man, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. So whichever way it goes, it's more fun than a $500,000 meat and potatoes tackle bot.
If you're at the pub and you've got him in your round one side and you're watching it on the big screen and you got a brand new schooner and you got a ticket in your hand for first try score, it's not going to get better. Okay, that's the feeling we want for round one Supercoach. He's in my side. Let's move along and have a look at some other options. Barnett is the fallen gun. Now, fallen gun used to be a great, really solid player. As far as his stats go, there could be times where he was very much like Aaron Clark with the base, but he also had these power stats where he had some really good offloads and could occasionally have really good footwork and find his way across the line, unlike Aaron Clark. ACL last year, pretty tough to swallow for Warriors fans, even tougher for a big fella to come straight back from. Now, he's not going to be there for round one. I haven't seen a definitive timeline on when he's going to be back, but it's meant to be early in the season.
I think round two. Round two is about when they're kind of circling, I think.
So, I mean, round two would be great for him. It's interesting because he's only 529,000 and he's front row forward only this year, so you're not going to get the jewel out of him. But as a front row forward, look, if he wasn't coming off an ACL injury and he's there round one at 529,000, there's probably an 80% chance I'd start with him for round one as one of my props.
Yeah.
There's some other options there in SuperCoach, but that's a really good price for him. And he's coming off, before his 54 average last year, it was a 68-point average, and even the year before it was a 60-point average. He looks really good. Now, for draft, I will 100% stash him towards the late middle rounds probably. I'd start to have a look. I guess, question for you on your opinion with it. Does he come in and start straight away? Because he has come off the bench coming back from injuries in the past. And if he does start straight away, are we going to manage his minutes initially? Which I would think that Webster probably would.
So from what I've seen, they haven't rushed him like to meet the start of the season, and it's been encouraging because a lot of the content that's coming out of there in the preseason training camps, they always take the guys out to Bethels, which is a black sand, iron sand beach on the west coast of Auckland, and they've got these massive hot, and the sand gets hot in the summertime because it's got iron in it, and it gets really hot. So you're sweating buckets, and it's just a hard place to train. He was leading some of those drills running up that sand, so I think aerobically he will be there, and I don't worry about ACLs as much with middle forwards as I would say like a winger who's trying to catch bombs and do stuff like that. So that wasn't a worry for me, the ACL. I had him in my early team when we had the picker open. Most of that was the price point, but also I think it was also just trying to get value into that position. Then I kind of went back and looked at some of last season's stats, and I think he's one of those guys who on-field presence is greater than his SuperCoach output. Do you know what I mean? Like when you think he's doing everything, he's involved in everything. Surely he got that line break assist. Surely he had a try involvement in that, didn't he? It's like nah. He just didn't get it because he's a prop and they just didn't want to give it to him. Whereas I think other players in that position, they just have more upside to them. And I think he's one of those guys his range of scoring without attacking stats is really low. Like it's from 50 to 60. He always scores in like the 50s or low 60s every week. And it's something that you can lock in. And if you know you're going to get about 60 average or high 50s average, then he's underpriced at 529. But only just. He might make you about 70, 80K. So it's not like you're going to make a heap of money and you're not going to make a heap of points. So I was looking at it and I was kind of like, I think I'm going to pass. And plus he's going to miss round one. So I'm like, well, that's an easy pass now for me. But for draft, I think he's a great option. But yeah, he's one of those guys that I think is really important to the actual Warriors team. But the output and the ceiling and the chance of attacking stats and things, it just doesn't seem to be there.
I'm going to do like the compliment sandwich here. Okay, I'm going to talk him down now, but then I'm going to finish on this really like high note. So we're in the middle bit here. We're in the meat, and like there's no chance in hell I could start with him coming off an ACL, not playing round one. That could easily be come back round 3 or come back round 4. Could easily be off the bench, minutes managed whatsoever. And here's the nice part again to finish with. I 100% can see a world where he becomes an early option, and I'll particularly say because like you could start with a Keon Kolomatangi, a Payne Haas, one of them gets hurt, or maybe they're really underwhelming and going to drop 150k in 1 week because Payne Haas is 850,000 as it is in price point, and then Mitch Barnett's come back for 2 games completely unscathed, full minutes starting again. That's a downgrade option where you could make 100k to 300k, and you're going to need to do that and put that money somewhere else where you missed another gun that you got to get in or whatever. So I can definitely see a world where that happens. He needs to come and hit the ground running though. He needs to be full minutes complement. And he does have some upside because it wasn't happening last year that he was getting as many offloads, which affected his power stats. But in prior years, particularly in 2024, had a lot of offloads, and he's able to do that. So, I mean, if you can do that again, then all of a sudden you got that extra value. So I can see relevance potentially, but no way I'm starting with him round 1.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about a pod option. And this is not a pod that I'm going to go with, but C&K in years prior as a fullback has put up massive numbers, particularly when you're looking at his base power stats. He's one of those guys who has done 70 plus in just base power alone in games when he started at fullback a couple of years ago. And he's now going to be, well, by all reports, he's won that fullback battle. Tal Peaky was not meant to be ready for round 1 anyway, but now there's reports coming out that even if he was, C&K has got the job. First of all, do you think that he's going to retain that number 1 jersey as a start?
I didn't see anything last year that would suggest that Webster wants to drop him. Am I a fan of it? I don't know. Like, I don't know whether we're going to challenge for a title with chance there. I just don't know if he's got the ball playing and the attacking threat that other teams have that win competitions. Like if you take Reece Walsh out of Broncos, they've no chance of winning that comp. So like, I just think there's it's such an important position. But in saying that, like there's been NRL players that have said that they don't like Chance back there because of how defensively organised he is. and how he's always in the right spot. He's always in the right place to make that really hard tackle,
Yeah.
stop that one-on-one play close to the line. He's just always there. So defensively, I think he's fantastic. But yeah, 521. I actually didn't realize he was that cheap.
Yeah,
Um,
super cheap. And you know why? Because he's that cheap because he only averaged 53 last year, but the 2 years before, he was 68 and 67 points per game. So that's where you can sort of find 14 or 15 points if he reverts back.
it's just that it's one of those things where like fullback is such a high upside position. So let's say your two fullbacks are, you know, like elite guns that you've got there. One's Keanu Kenny and one's whoever you like, whatever. And then your flex position, some people are not going to go with a gun. They're going to go with an expensive player. They're going to go with, someone like a Fa'alonga, or they're hoping Trey Fuller gets picked. Someone around a very similar price point to Chance. Now, you could say if there's a lot of interest in Fa'alonga because he's going to be playing fullback for the Storm, but he's got some really low scores in him, really low. And you don't know whether his output is really going to be any better, than Chance, but there's a lot of interest in him. If Chance has attacking stats, he often scores in the 80s, and for that price, he's well underpriced, isn't he, for that? So if you look at the draw and you go, hey, we haven't got a halfback, so someone else is going to need to be involved in these attacking plays, you may well find that first 7 rounds, Chance gets a lot more involved in the attack.
Good
So
point.
so I don't have the balls to do it. But I'm sure maybe if you're a hardcore Warriors fan and you want to roll the dice, or you just really want a pod, then I think, I didn't realize he was that cheap. I mean, it's an option for sure. I'd rather do that than Will Kennedy, put it that way.
Well, yeah, I think Cronulla would probably rather do that than Will Kennedy too, but, oh, it's all right, Will. I still like you. But, look, some new listeners or viewers will be like, why are you talking about CNK? He's not really a pod option. Just a reminder, and I like to do the reminder here and there on this podcast, we're all about going in depth. So talking about everybody, because there's also going to be draft happening, and people want to know for draft as well. I put him down as a pod option because no one's going to own him, so he is a pod. There's no way I could do it this year. I think the only way I could make the argument for him is in prior years, maybe if there wasn't as many fullback options. Now, for the same price, he could be the biggest value option 4 years ago. But because we've got Kinney and Fa'alonga at the same price, and then Fuller if he's a fullback, then all of a sudden there's so much competition at that 500k odd price point. I just couldn't put CNK there, and he's also older with less development in him than what those other guys have. And then you've got all the guns that are available now. We speak every year about how important it is to stack your side with fullbacks, and I'm going to say that this year we've got even more fullback options than we've ever had. So I think that cancels him out as a pod option. But in other years, that's at that price point, with the draw that they've got, you could take a punt. Something I didn't mention with the other guys, Anton, that I want to throw in there at you as well. I'm not going to say it for CNK necessarily, but with any of these Warriors that you're planning on not having short term, they're really good to throw in early because you can just hold them for that first buy round too. So that's a big plus for a Leka Halasima. If you're going to start with him, he can be there all the way through. And the same if you did go to the pod route of CNK, which I would not recommend, but it is there. There is a Big Balls pod route as well. And Big Balls pod is those guys that are going to be like 1% to 2%. They're not just under 10%, they're 1% to 2%. There might only be 7 people that own them. Leotawa is the guy that I pinpointed for this. He was someone that we talked about last year, Anton, who I thought, look, he could break out, and then you talked him up massively and you got me really excited. And I had him in draft as well. I actually got him in draft, and it did not work out. I spoke to other people that I know, friends of mine. Yeah, friends of mine got him in Classic. And I tell you what, it was so hard for them not to sell him for the first few rounds, but eventually they had to. He comes in at $452,000. It is a cheap price. The bad parts of his game last year that we saw, his raw base was 24, which is really low. His base power was only mid-30s, and he looks like sometimes when he has a good game, he's got that power in him that he should be getting a lot of tackle breaks a game, and he could get the off-fade away. He wasn't doing it. So you had like these really low scores. You had 2 monsters in there where he scored tries and he looked great. All the rest were terrible. And he only had, just over half a dozen games in first grade anyway. Now, he went from a 0.75 ppm to 0.58. If he goes back to 0.75, that's 14 points in value just straight away. So, do you think that he'll start that again?
I don't think he'll cough. No.
So do you think he'll come good?
So let's play a little bit of role playing here. Let's say round one teams, he gets picked in that centre spot. It looks like it's his to lose, and away he plays the trials really, really well, plays it all away. When I was in New Zealand, I caught a few Warriors games there. I often arrived a little early and watched a bit of the New South Wales Cup. He was playing with Tamaita Martin and on that right, and some of the shit that they were doing was just like the soft hands. It wasn't all power stuff. Like he came through the grades as a fullback at high school level, so he's big, he's tall, and he's got a very SuperCoach friendly game. Lots of tackle busts. He can break a line. He can put someone else away. He can offload it and he can score tries. He can catch bombs. All of that stuff. What I saw in NRL level when other teams were scoring tries or something was happening, I was watching his body language and stuff that he was doing. He wasn't chasing players when they break the line. Just little things like that from a young player that I think if the coach is watching that, I think that's the sort of thing where when we lost a centre and he was fit and Webster put, Kurt Capewell in the centres instead, and people were like, what are you doing? Why don't you play this young guy in there? It's like, well, he's got to learn that. He's got to learn that, sort of being a consistent NRL player. So like how we were talking with Leka as well, there were effort areas and there were injuries last year. So I think last year was a big learning year for him. He's still really young, right? So I think all of those lessons and being back in the squad now with more competition and more players, if he gets that spot, I don't see him approaching it the same way. It'll be make or break. But I've said this about other guys in the past, like Vilea and lots of other centers that we've had that have had all the talent and just never went on with it. I hope he's not going to be that because he's such a gun and he's got such a good. I mean, I'm only talking about footy here and what I'm seeing, but he's also, if we can get him playing to the best of his ability in center, far out, that suddenly changes the whole dynamic of our backline.
Oh, I think you've really needed it. I think the Warriors for years have really needed a gun centre there that's reliable, that's elite. Like, the last one I can remember off the top of my head is probably Nigel Wagner.
That's going way back.
It's going way back.
I was going to say Solomon Ekata or Ngani Laumape or somewhere like that. But that's still 2013. That's still 2013.
It's certainly not Rocco Berry. No offence to Rocco Berry.
He's done, mate. I reckon he's done. He's only contracted to the end of this year, and he can't walk through a door without falling over. So he's yeah. I don't know. I think with regard to the Warriors, there's just scrolling through the side now. I think there's windows for certain players, like I said with Ford and other guys. Ali, if he gets a shot, it's a great price point, and you could totally take a crack. There's one guy that we haven't talked about that I think there's actually two, and I'll be really quick. One is Tamaita Martin. If he gets halfback when Luke Metcalf is gone, we saw what he did in short spells at halfback previously. Not so much 5'8", but halfback when it's his team to run. He scored about like 5 try assists against the Panthers one round. I think that was the Bathurst game, and everyone went, "Oh, okay, far out." He's so cheap. He's like 200 and something thousand.
235, 600,
mate,
and coming off a 24 average. A year before he scored 68 points per game, which was that year where I went, "Is this really him?" Because he just looks so much different than he did before.
Because there's a world where he starts a halfback and we bring young Sam Healy onto the bench, who's a gun as well. But I think Webster will go for the long kicking game of Tanner Boyd. I think he will. And equally, if anything happens to Egan, if Egan goes down, Sam Healy at 429k at hooker, gun.
He showed some really good things last year. I was really impressed with him.
He's a really good player, man. And we've now got a young guy coming up behind him. So if Egan was to move on or anything like that, Healy would become our guy. I think, he's one to keep an eye on, just as the season ticks along, because he's, again, got a really SuperCoach friendly game. He's got a kick in him and just a good player. But, we've covered a lot in this episode, I think, mate.
We have. There is a couple more to finish on. Before we do, I just need to quickly mention the great sponsor of the NRL Allstars podcast in One World Courier. oneworldcourier.com.au. You can go there right now. If you or your business has any shipping or freight needs, then you need to go there because they are like a compare the market website. You jump on the website, sign up for a free account. When you do, it'll say, "How did you hear about us?" Say, NRL All-Stars podcast. They'll put you on a good rate card to start with so you can get some cheap prices initially to try them out. But you plug in exactly what you want to send, whether it's a pallet or whatever, and where it's going to. they'll give you a list of all the providers that you can choose from and all the rates. You choose whatever one, and then bang, they look after it all for you. You don't even have to go through TNT or whoever you picked. They'll just do it all. So One World Courier, go jump on them today. Great sponsors of the NRL All-Stars podcast. Anton, I'm glad you brought up Wade Egan. I'm going to keep this really short. We've got a little section after the guns and the pods and everyone called the mistakes. Don't get Wade Egan. I got sucked in last year. He always finds an injury, and he did it to me last year again. And the numbers look okay. He's always at that all right price point. He's again going to be at 527,000. Thank God there is some cheap hooker options to keep us out of that area, because in years past it's been hard because you might not have any starting hookers that look any good aside from the guys that are expensive and you don't want to spend there. But thankfully this year we got them. Wade Egan was a terrible mistake. Do you think, and I say mistake for me last year when I brought him in, do you think that Healy would job share at some point this year with Egan?
I'd like to see it, personally, but I just think with the way HIAs and stuff are going at the moment, a guy like Tamati is way smarter to do that. He can play in the centres, he can play at lock in a pinch, he's quite a good defender, and he can play anywhere in the halves or anywhere in the spine. He can spell it hooker, he can play fullback. He did it for Brisbane. I think he's just unfortunately probably going to play that 14 role, but we saw it in stages last year where he played off the bench and came on. There was a game against Cronulla, his old team, where he came on and did really well. But yeah, Egan always seems like he's a really good player. Like when he's organising the attack, and he always seems to bring the forwards onto the ball, and very good hooker. But he's always goes down. Like at least once every few sets, he goes down holding something, and every Warriors fan just goes.
I'm just going to jump in and just go on a tangent there about Warriors fans, right? Because I had some get stuck into me last year because somebody said, and it was on like a big journalist, I don't know if it was the Mole or someone else on Facebook, but it was put up there, could Wade Egan be in the running for the Blues? And I'm like, no way. He's always hurt. And some Warriors fan came at me like guard dogs chasing me down the junkyard. Like, he never gets hurt. Look at all these games he's played. Numbers don't lie. It's like, so I need to clarify here so I don't get that again. The games look good on paper, okay? His 5 years of playing have been 20 games, 19 games, 20 games, 20 games. He's done 20 plus games 4 out of the last 5 years, and the other one's 19. It looks really good. I've said the same thing about Adam Reynolds. It's not just the games he misses, it's the ones he goes down in that hurt you. And there must have been like 6 games that are in that 20 games that he played last year, Egan, where he's come off with something. He's been hindered when he's been on, or he's copped a HIA and not come back. And if you look at his minutes, Anton, there's only half of his games last year at 80 minutes. There's a lot of 60s and 70s, and people say, that's normal rest game. It isn't actually. He was like off for 5 minutes or something and then limped back on or had a head knock,
Webster wants him to be the 80-minute guy, but I think if the dictionary was illustrated and you fast forwarded to the word wince, it'd have a picture of Wade Egan on the ground holding something, and he'd be holding his shoulder or his knee or his head or something, and like maybe he goes off and has it checked, maybe he stays on, maybe he gets some tape, but there's always a drama with him injury-wise. That's why I'm circling Sam Healy, and I'm just kind of like, there's going to be a point in the season where we will be without Egan. And when that happens, hop on. Like, just jump on him and don't think twice about it, because he's got lots of attack in him. Lots. So I think there's actually a few Warriors fans that are calling for that to just happen, for him to be starting. But I mean, you're not going to take the jersey off Egan. He's done too much. But I just think he's one to watch. But yeah, Egan is absolutely not a guy. Don't see the name and go, I can get a starting player. Or Warriors fans in particular, if you're listening and you're that hardcore about it, he ain't the guy. There's other dudes this year. You don't have to spend the money. You don't have to have the heart attack. Don't do it.
It's just not worth it. Look, we're going to talk cheapies and mid-range guys, and there isn't really many. So we've hit a couple of mid-range guys as pods and stuff, but cheapie-wise, Jacob Laban, 299,000, not that cheap, but still in the cheapie range. I thought he would start back row last year, pretty much because I didn't know about Leka the Wrecker yet, and because I had the same thoughts about Capo and Nukora as I have 12 months later, and I probably had those same thoughts 24 months before that as well. But we digress. I thought Laban would be starting, and he didn't, and he only ended up playing 12 games last year at 31 per game, averaging 34 minutes per game. So he still hasn't really gotten that break in first grade. 7 and 12 games the last 2 years, and in that not even mid-30s on average with how much he's played. This year, does he have a chance to get either of those edge-back row spots, or you mentioned that he can play a bit of middle as well. Could we see him getting 50 minutes off the bench? Because if he can do that 45 to 50 odd off the bench combo forward style, 20 minutes edge, 25 minutes middle, all of a sudden there's value there at 299,000. And unfortunately with the Warriors side, I'm sorry for all the Warriors fans that love SuperCoach, you don't have a lot of cheapy options. So Laban is probably the most interesting one at the moment.
Laban's one of those guys who probably needs an injury to be relevant in SuperCoach, but all the ability is there. He's also really big. And we lost that when Harris left. He was just like a giant sort of tarantula that stood in the middle of the field, and if you were close to him, he'd kind of grab you like Isaiah Yo, Laban is like that. He's got a big body, so he often starts on the edge and then he moves into the middle. There is a world, now I'm not saying this is going to happen. There is a world where if we take the Pac champs as lesson, where Aaron Clark came off the bench and just destroyed teams, there's a world where Laban starts a lock or somebody else starts a lock, and then things can happen. But I don't know. I think until Kurt Capewell and Niokore are well and truly out of the side, Laban might not be as relevant as we want him to be. But if Kurt Capewell goes down, we actually saw last year, there was a spell where Laban got quite a few runs of games starting, and he was a weapon. He did really well. He scored he scored one try at least, maybe a couple. But he was plucking balls out of the air from bombs and things, and just looked really, really good. And I think long term he's going to be the guy on the edge for us, but not round one. He's a guy to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, he had 2 games back to back against the Panthers and the Broncos where he played 72 and 58 minutes as a starting 12. And he went 74 and 50 points in each of those, and scoring a try in one and having a contribution in another one.
There we go.
He looked really good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he goes back to the bench and he's back to 15 to 32 minutes a game. And
he was
the
sharing
start
with
of the
Leka.
season too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was rotating with Leka, yeah.
He looked great for that couple of games, but Webster just didn't persist. So it's one of those things too in modern rugby league that annoys me, because I'm an old school rugby league player, as people can tell because I'm old. But left and right never used to be that big a deal, right? I played on the left and the right as an edge back row. It didn't really matter. But these days, so much stock is put into it. And it's always a worry, because if Laban and Leka are both the same side, then sometimes they don't like playing the other side, and sometimes coaches don't like putting them on the other side. And it's just this really weird modern rugby league thing. And so many modern rugby league things work and are so much smarter, but there are some things that I just think are overthought, and I think that's definitely one of them. And it's always going to be a potential issue if he doesn't move to the middle, that he's going to have Leka there in front of him as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think with Leka, he's probably the guy that wouldn't care. You could probably play him at fullback if you wanted to. I don't think it would really matter with him. But Laban, who knows? Yeah.
Have you got any other hookers? No, we don't want any more hookers. We've got Wade Egan. That's more than enough. Have you got any other cheapies that we haven't spoken about before we go? Because you're going to have more of an idea than me.
There is one player. So obviously the one centre spot is taken by Adam Pompey. There's been a few different variations of the starting team, where RTS takes the other spot, or maybe it's Ali Leotawa. Rocco Berry might have been there, but he's injured. There's one guy in the squad that we saw a bit of last year. His name's Edemir Toiava, and or EIT for people who don't like saying it. He played a lot of centre in New South Wales Cup. He's big, and he's known as Eddie Goggins in camp, because he basically just keeps going and go. He's super, super fit. He's tall, he's agile, and he can kind of do it all. So he's only available in second row in SuperCoach. If he gets that starting centre spot, he could be dual, and he's K. So again, a guy to keep an eye on. Not saying it's going to happen, but he's a guy in the squad who can play that position, and he has done, to a very high level. So he's a guy that they're very keen on, and he's actually, of the entire squad, he is the one with the longest contract. He is signed on till 2029 or something mental like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So longer than Vaimonga, longer than Jacob Laban, longer than Leka Halasima. So they've got massive raps on him. So don't be surprised if he's the guy who puts his hand up in preseason and takes that centre spot. And at 339K, very, very juicy.
Pompey I would put into the bucket of the centres that haven't impressed me enough to sort of be a stalwart, stay there and be elite as well. So yeah, I could see someone overtaking him as well. So that's really good intel. I like the sound of him. I think that the Warriors haven't really had that many of those sort of guys in recent years. Like you seem to have a lot of like power nugget guys or smaller guys, but not that sort of tall athletic centre that's, that 6'4", 6'5", Campbell Graham style type of guy. You don't really normally have those body builds lately in that Warriors backline. So I'd be really interested to see that. Even the wingers aren't like that. Well, that'll wrap it up. So hopefully it gave you a bit of Warriors intel, everyone. If you want to follow the podcast or support us, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. That really helps us out and also means that you get the episodes straight away. But Anton, Warriors superfan and president of the Bunty Afoa fan club, thank you very much for jumping on and giving us all your Warriors opinions. It's much appreciated, and it was some great intel there.
Always a pleasure, Barnesy, man. I love the podcast, listen to them all the time when they come out, and real fun to be on one again. And to all the Warriors fans out there, up the Wars.
Up the Wars. Look at that. What a shirt. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back with another episode on another team preview real soon. We're pumping out 2 to 3 every week before we hit the Vegas first TLT. Until the next one, look forward to talking footy again real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid.